All right, Thomas, thanks for presenting. If you introduce yourself, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay, so I am Thomas Stevens, and I am a member of the Texas Northern Model Railroad Club in North Dallas, Texas. I've been essentially running the operation sessions every week on Tuesdays for the past about 2 years or thereabouts. I didn't set the system up, but I've been maintaining it and updating it. The guy that originally set it up worked for American Airlines, and about a year and a half ago or thereabouts, he got transferred to Atlanta, I think, or someplace like that. So I took over maintaining this. We use car cards and waybills, and on about a scale of 1 to 10, we're probably about a 2. So this is probably the easiest way to do operations. We don't have dispatching. We don't have signals. I've been trying to put signals on the layout for some time, but haven't managed that. So it's a very simple system. And if you like all the complexity that the real railroads did, this is not that. We don't care, about all the dispatcher controlling everybody. It's basically, we'll get into how we do it. So let's see, here's an overview of how we operate. We use car cards and waybills and train cards. The operations flow, there's a dispatch board. We'll show you that. Then I've got some pictures and videos after this. So first I'll go through the mechanics, then I'll show you how we do it, what's on the dispatch board and how we do that. And then I've got some pictures and I've got a series of videos that follows a train around and actually does something. And then we'll talk about, what you saw and answer questions. So first off, we use car cards. They're computer managed. I've got a spreadsheet in OpenOffice that will print everything automatically as you need it. It's computer managed. In the spreadsheet, there's the list of cards, and you can reprint them anytime you want to. Every card that we use has a car card. And when I did this presentation last, I had handouts. So I'll show you what I'm talking about when I say handouts, examples later. Sorry about that. We use waybills. They're the 4-position cycle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's some color coding, but not a lot. Again, I've got examples and I'll show you the examples when we get down there. In fact, if you want, I can let you see the spreadsheets in action. Every job has a train card. There's a minimum data on the card, is basically the name, some simple instructions, a list of industries and car types that's used for making up and blocking. The industries are listed in blocking order. So when we are blocking a train, the train card is the reference that we use to say, okay, this car comes before that, so that when the operator gets to the location, his cars are all neat and easier for him to do. We've stopped doing that the last couple of weeks because some of the guys said, oh, I'm getting bored with this. Let me do something else. So, okay, here's a 20-car train and it's not blocked. And I've got some feedback that some said, oh, that made more work for me. And others said, nah, I don't like that. So, personal preferences there. We have a dispatch board on Google Sheets. It's in the cloud. Anybody can connect up to it and sign up for a train in the next session. It shows all the trains with their status, whether they've been picked or not, or trimmed, who's signed up for this. The operators may sign up ahead of time. We'll get into that a little bit more if you want to see that. The session sequence is the dispatcher, which is usually me, makes up trains before each session, usually on Sunday night and Monday night. Takes about 4 hours to get it all done. Sometimes if I'm running busy like I'm busy today doing this, I'll come in Monday and get it mostly and then come up early on Tuesday and finish up. The operators can sign up before the session for a specific train. If someone signs up, say for the Tulsa train, I'll make sure that the Tulsa train is made and ready for them and hold it for them. So we'll hold them for about an hour. And after that, if they haven't shown up, we may give it to someone else. But it starts Tuesday at 6, that's Central Time since we're in Dallas. The Yard West dispatcher, which is usually me, calls the first train, and then as each train, it switches out the old cars for new and comes back. So if you get to a spot and there's 3 cars in your train and 4 cars on the industry, you spot the 3 and come back with the 4. Easy peasy, fun. And the Yard East classifies the cars when they come back. I usually try to make sure there's a string of cars for the Yard East to classify when he comes in at 6, just so he doesn't sit around twiddling thumbs until the first train comes back. But it depends on who the Yard East is, whether they want that or not. The operator is assigned a train. He brings his own engines to the yard limit and requests clearance. He hooks up to the train, gets the card deck, travels to the location, swaps his cars with cards spotted last session. And there's some exceptions. We've got some off spots and holds and some other things that we can put in to make for a little bit different between sessions, so you're not doing exactly the same thing all the time. He returns to Cookyard with his cars and his car cards, hopefully in order. The previous guy that did this was very particular about, oh no, I can't take it, they're not in order, but we just take it and redo it. There's 2 Yardmasters, Yardmaster East and Yardmaster West. I have done both of these in one session, and it's like, one arm paper hanger. It's running back over here and running it back over there. And yeah, it's not as fun as when there's 2 people there. So Yardmaster East classifies returning cars into proper tracks in Cookyard. He controls the yard access for trains leaving or returning on the east. We've got an east entrance and a west entrance. The Yardmaster West calls trains as operators are ready to start, manages access for trains returning or transiting west end. There's a couple of jobs that have to go through Cookyard to get to another yard, and I have to line the tracks for that. If there's enough time and enough cars, you can make up new trains during the session. Originally, when we started out, the guy that set this up, Mike, did real-time train trimming. So he'd come in and he'd make a couple of trains and spot them, and then he'd continue making trains. And the first 2 guys came in and got those first 2 trains. And then as he made up a train, he'd call it and it would go out. Then he'd spend another 30 minutes making a train and he'd call it and it'd go out. And we gradually got away from that. So we make up 7 trains beforehand so that they're spotted various places in the yard, and the 7 trains are there ready to go. You come in, you hook up, and off you go. There's a couple of conflicts that when I'm doing the Yard West, I try not to send out the 3 trains that are using the same lead to sort cars on. So there's less fist fights. But the guy that does it for me sometimes says, oh yeah, I'll send them all out and let them talk to each other. So that, of course, depends on your clientele, whether they like that or not. Here's an example of a waybill. I've got one in my hand. Let's see if I can show it up here. Here it is. There's a number. There's a 1. There's a 2. You flip it over. There's a 3. And then there's a 4. So these are printed from a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. And it's printed on 2-sided paper. So when you cut it out, there's one piece of paper that has everything on one side, one on the other. And it took me a long time to figure out how to do this, because the guy that started it out, he had it where it was working, but it wasn't very efficient or easy to use. So I modified it quite a bit and got it to where you can easily print it out. I'll show you the spreadsheet in a few minutes when we're done with the videos. Here's a car card example. And this is the top of what you see when you print. I just printed out a new sheet of these, and here's what they look like. Let me see if I can get a good view of that. Let me see if I can put on a light here in just a second.
Yeah, if you want to show that, you need to stop your share, Thomas.
Yeah, I've got yeah, so can you see that?
Yeah, you need to stop your share if you want.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll get back to it later. I'll just do it at the end, show you the examples. Okay, so here's a train card example. They print 4 to a sheet, and there's, about a dozen of these that go. You can see at the top, there's the origin and the destination. That's the name. The guy that started ahead of us, Mike, put in the LTEX 432 and 476, and nobody knows what that means, so they just ignore it. Everybody goes by where it is, where it's going. So it's the Tulsa turn, the Hobson turn, Russellville or Palestine, etc. And then there's some simple instructions in the middle. And at the bottom, there's the list of what cars go where and how many. So let's look at Tulsa on the left at the bottom. You can see there's 2 team tracks, 2 spots for team track. There's 6 spots for the Red River Co-op. There's 1 for Ready Gas. There's 2 for Hoffa Cement, 2 for Grimes Oil, 3 for Swift stock cars, and 3 for Swift reefers. So if you block the train, this is the order they go in. It takes into account which spots are behind other spots and which spots are going left and which spots are going right. So there are some with leading points and some with trailing points. And this one, there's 2 going one way and the rest go another. And you can see in the other, Hobson, the second one, if you look at the bottom, all the way at the bottom, there's 8 MKT interchange. That's an interchange train with everything going off. It's an interchange, but it's 8 cars because there's a little bitty swapping track there. So whatever's on the interchange track, there's 8 of those go out to there. If there's a couple of long cars in there, I swap it out and do some just 6 or 5, depending. There's some of these things you have to know a little bit about where you're dispatching it to or building it. Like steel scrap has an asterisk on it. That's long enough for 240s, but it's not long enough for 250s. So you can put either 150 or 240 gondolas on there. Some odds and ends were BYOP, you bring your own power. We've got a couple of loaners in case you don't know or you're a foreign operator and coming over. So I can lend you a couple of locomotives. Most of the people there the regulars can lend you something if you need something. We try to make the trains up before the session. Sometimes there's enough cars that we can make up an extra train during the session in case someone new comes in and somebody wants some more work to do. We use JMRI for our throttles. So there's an app on our phone that we use for controlling our trains. It's basically fire and forget dispatching until the operators come back. So there's no waypoints or control points or anything like that. It's here's your train, you're going east, go out this end. Let me know when you're ready to come back. We've got track diagrams that we can post on the locations. So like there's a Tulsa diagram and a Hobson diagram and a Russellville diagram, etc. And we've grown in popularity. When it first came, there was 5 or 10. Now we sometimes have 15 or 20 people come to the session. Not all of them run, but it's the glue that brings in the social people for our club. Let's see, here's a map of our layout. Our layout was created starting back in the 80s. And when it was designed, they didn't design it for operations. Uh, the thin orange lines you see all around there, those are module boundaries. So we've moved twice in the past 5 years, and everywhere there's an orange line there, we took something apart to move it. You can see on the numbers that we've numbered the tables or sections, and there's, I think we got up to 45, 44 or 45. So it's quite a big layout. You can see the numbers on here. There's Palestine in the middle. There's Hartsdale on the top right. Russellville is upside down at the top. There's also ADM up there, and there's Gary, and let's see, yeah. Then down at the bottom, there's Tulsa on the left and Hobson on the right, and there's staging or interchange in the center. Benson, you can see also in the center on the where it does the thing, that's been totally reworked. So that's not correct on this map. And they're also taking out the loop on the top left and replacing it with a turntable on the other side of that aisle. There are a couple of duck unders, and I'll show you how we deal with those. Any questions about the map?
Just go ahead and keep going. We'll have.
Okay, hearing none, then that was the last of the SharePoint. So let me go ahead and get out of this.
Hey, why don't we, there's a couple of questions. Why don't we do that before you do your pictures and video, if that's okay?
Okay, sure, that's fine.
Let's see. From when you switch towns in station order, where do you put the pickups in the train? 2YM or general YM and switch? Oh.
On the train coming back, we don't really care what order they're in as long as the cards are in the same order as the cars. Because as soon as it gets back to the yard, it gets deconstructed into the various follow-on destinations.
Okay.
So
and then there's a.
So if you pick something up from Tulsa, it's not going to go back to Tulsa. It's going to go somewhere else.
Got it. And it looks like 2YM or general YM and switch crew. I'm assuming, do you mean 2 yard masters or general yard master and switch crew, Travers?
Oh, there's.
Yeah, that's the question. Is there some one person in charge of the yard?
No, there's 2 people. In theory, there's 2 people, one at each end. And the West Yard Master doubles as dispatcher. I tried to set it up with a separate dispatcher that was in control of everybody and walked around, but it basically came down to just me. So when I'm the West Yard Master, I'm also the dispatcher. And then I rope somebody in on the other end to do Yard Master East and classify cars when they come in.
All right. Let's see, another question. When you're setting up a list of cars to spot, does the yard place the cars at the top in the back of the train and all the way to the last cars on the list at the front, or vice versa?
Well, let me go back to that slide. Let's see, where'd that go? Train cards. So here's an example. Let's see if I can get that. So you've got eastbound trains and westbound trains. So if you look in the middle, Russellville is westbound. So when I'm setting up the train, when I'm blocking it, it goes from left to right because you go westbound, leaves on the left. So the Superior Brewing is on the left, followed by Magic Pan, blah, 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 and the team track is all the way on the right. The one next to it, Palestine, goes eastbound. That leaves to the right. So the Midwest Scrap is on the right. No, stop that dog. Sorry, my dog's hungry and making noise. So the Palestine Midwest scrap is on the right, and the rail car cars are on the left. So it depends on which direction it leaves. Is this the how the cars are placed in the outgoing train?
Okay. And then one last question on the map. What do the colors mean?
Let me go back to the map and look at that.
Like purple, it's mostly purple
Yeah.
versus black.
Yeah.
I guess industrial track or.
Yeah. Well, we've got 4 main lines on the layout. And I think on this one, the main lines are either blue or green. And we've got the inside main, the outside main, and those go all the way around the layout. There's a mountain main that goes up to Benson, comes back around, loops around, goes back underneath as a tunnel, goes around, crosses the bridges, and comes back up. And then with the purple all the way around is the industry track. That's got its own booster. And then the yard complex in the middle in black is another block or electrical block that has its own booster.
Okay. All right. And just, this is my question on this, what's the dimension? If you wrap a box around this whole thing, what's your dimensions? How many feet?
You'll have to go to our website to do that because I don't off the top of my head.
That's
but
fine.
It's about 3,000 square feet.
Jeez. Okay. And then Tom asked, do freight trains have a specific order in which they have to be dispatched? Also, do trains that run later in an ops session depend on receiving specific cars from trains that run earlier in the session?
At one time, well, that's the second part of that first. At one time when Mike was making up the trains as he went, sometimes a car would come back and go out on that same session, but generally no. A car comes back, it gets classified in the yard, ready to be put on the train for next session. Okay. I don't really have a sequence that I want to do, but if you look at the bottom on the map, let's see if I can make that do that. Yeah, there we go. If you look on the map between Tulsa and Hobson, unless you know what you're doing, if you run both of those at the same time, they can fight each other over who's got the track and can you move your cars? I'm trying to use that.
I have that's a common thing. I mean, on the layout I'm in the process of working on, there are places where I can't run this local and another local at the same time because the places are on top of each other. And so the operators will literally standing on each other trying to get their way. So
Palestine is pretty easy to dispatch because it's off by itself and you don't have any conflicts with anybody else except that he might use the train that people are coming back into the yard from. On the top is where it gets really complicated because Gary, Russellville, ADM, and Hartsdale all use the same runaround track or pretty close to it. So when you're dispatching something over there, if you've got Russellville going, you don't dispatch Cook and ADM or Gary and ADM at the same time. If you're dispatching Hartsdale, that clogs up the Cook yard on the west end, because you can see that on the right, and everything goes through there. So when he's switching that, he gets interrupted a lot for people trying to come by in there. So I try to do Hartsdale either beforehand or last thing, just to make it easier on the guy doing it, because otherwise every 10 minutes he has to stop and clear the path for people to go either in or out.
Got it. Okay. All right, that's the last of the questions. So if you want to do your pictures and video, go ahead. Please
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So let's go to here. Let's let's see, I don't want that. I want, where'd that go? That's here and there and here. Okay, so here's some pictures, and we'll crank that up and make this, oh, I can't see the, let's get it down here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here's the yard west, and there's the computer that we throw up the dispatch sheet on. So as I'm making up a train and spotting it, I update the dispatch sheet to say, okay, this is ready. It's color-coded green. Here's the column. In the column, I put what track it's on, et cetera, et cetera. This is Cookyard. It's got 11 tracks in it. It goes from here all the way down to the end. As far as you can see, the guys in the background. Let's see, here's the car card boxes for the West End yard. And this is where the train cards go when they're not being actively used. You can see on the left, there's one train that's been made up. It's got the cards put together. He's got the clip on it to keep them all together. And that's probably either, well, it might be Tulsa or Hartsdale. They're on the same track, or they're pulled from the same track. And you can see on the left, there's some various insert cards that we have. And then there's some extra things on the right. And then we use the uncoupling sticks. Here's the yard east, the end. You can see the main yard on the left. And then there's a bypass that runs around where that string of cars is. And that goes out to the end, the exit for yard east. And through that tunnel to just to the left of center, that's our only reversing track. That tunnel goes out under the city and comes back going to the right. Normally you go out, you go around the city and you go to the left. And that's got an interchange that I'll show you in another picture coming along. And then on the far left, that's the 8-track interchange yard. And it's got a couple of trains in there waiting to be processed. And then we keep an intermodal string there for people that just want to come and run something around. Here's a look back at Yard West, start looking from about the middle of the yard. And you can see there's a lot of cars there. And then there's the front door to give you some scale. This is Gary. I'm going to go around the layout and show you a lot of the places that we use when we operate. It's got 4 tracks in the center, and then there's a 5th track on the left to drop off coal cars. And when I was at the layout the last couple of days, a lot of this is obsolete because we've continued to work on the layout. So the buildings you see on the left that says center plant, those are temporarily disassembled, and they're redoing that end of the table to put in the turntable. You see in the back, there's the steel mill. At one point, we're going to include that in operations, but nobody's run a steel mill yet. So we're trying to figure out still what car goes where on what track and what do we need to do it, etc. Here's another look at Gary from the outside. Where John is on the right there, he's used the duck under to get under into inside the layout. So he's sitting there with his arms on the layout, just looking at. He's the guy that did all the steel mill stuff here. And for 30 years, you'd come in and a building was missing, and a couple of months later, you'd come in and the building was back with twice as many details, and another building would disappear. I mean, he does wonderful work, but he does it all at home and takes stuff home and works it and brings it back. And it's kind of confusing sometimes to figure out, well, what's he doing? Well, he's been working on it for 30 years and he enjoys that. In the foreground, you can see the team track and the crop paper for Russellville. But what you see in the middle there, that's Gary. There's another look at Gary with the track leads going in. Here's the car card boxes for Gary. And you'll notice that these might look familiar because they're from Micromark. We don't use the cards, but we use their boxes because they're easy and handy. We just paint them black. And there's the car cards and the waybills. And you'll notice that none of those say Gary, because when you drop off your car, drop off the card, you flip the waybill to the next location. So when you pick it up and it goes back to the classification yard, that's where they're going. So you can see the one on the right, the flat car goes to the Tulsa team track. The one to the left of that, the Missouri Pacific gondola, it goes to Palestine scrap. Then it goes to East Station. There's one for interchange and one for West staging. Here's the diagram for that location. So it says, here's the tracks and here's how you navigate around to get there. And here's, we're starting on Russellville now. There's the team track. And to the left of that is crop paper. One of the longtime members who's our money man is named James Crop. So we put in crop international paper there because that's what his dad did. Next to that, there's, let's say this is Drywell Inks, which takes chemical cars. And there's the slots for where we've been talking about so far: team track, crop paper, and Drywell Inks. There's the card boxes. Now we go to Magic Pan, and to the left of Magic Pan is Imperial Plastics. And there's Imperial Plastics and Magic Pan. There's Imperial Brewing. Sorry, I'm having trouble speaking at the moment, but it's a brewery. And then here's ADM. And ADM has several locations. There's a track there for hoppers. Inside the building there's a place to spot box cars. And then on the left is ADM tanks, and we'll show that Superior Brewery, ADM, and ADM tanks. I think we've updated this because there's some other stuff that needed to go in there. There's the tanks for the ADM. The ADM is the Walters alcohol processing plant that came out a couple of years ago. It had everything to do with the alcohol processing, and that's where that came from. Here's the track diagram for ADM and part of Russellville. This is how we run the layout with these control panels, and each control panel has an area that it does, and it's not necessarily the same as the locations that we've got up because it didn't quite match when we were setting it up. So here's the first part of Hartsdale. There's the petroleum tracks on the left. There's petroleum loading stuff that goes across the bridge. There's the TXI cement plant with a couple of cement hoppers in it. On the other side, here's the team track, sometimes known as Lewiston. And then going up the hill, there's the Coke plant, which is also part of Hartsdale. You've got to be careful on that because if you spot a car in the wrong spot, it'll roll down the hill. There's a wide view of the Coke plant, so you can see all the buildings that are in there. Here's the scrap for the Palestine. Palestine is our engine repair facility. That was a big I think it was on, yeah, on the ATSF, on Santa Fe, and then everybody else went through there too down here. So it's a big name in Texas railroading. And here's the engine facility. And you can see there's a couple of places to park locomotives. There's a couple of spots in there to spot sand cars. And then the track on the outside is basically the rip cars where they come to get fixed. We did have them as specified specified spots. So on your way bill, it would say go to Palestine, but we changed that a couple of months ago, so that instead of that, the yard east guy every now and then will pull out a card that says, this is a bad order card. He slips it in the pocket and puts it on track 9, and that goes over here to get worked on. And when it's in theory worked on, you pull out the bad order card and it goes back to the yard and gets swapped into wherever it's supposed to go next. Now we going around to Hobson, and we've got a Purina Chow spot, which takes grain and stuff. Behind that, next to the center, is a team track, and it's got a flat car on it. You can just see the box cars sticking out of the back of Golden Valley Canning. Apparently that was a very common kit that people did back in the day. And someone said there's 2 of these on the layout, but I don't remember what the second one is. Here's the steel scrap, and steel, S-T-E-L-E, is one of the longtime members. So you put a scrap yard there. There's the 2 40-foot gondolas. If you put 2 50-foot gondolas, they foul one end or the other. So it's either 240 or 150. And then here's the interchange. That's called MKT interchange several places. So that's the cars that basically, in theory, go out somewhere and come back from somewhere else. We don't actually take our interchange off the layout, but in theory, that's what you would be doing on under some schemas. Here's the interchange and the steel scrap boxes. And here's the Golden Valley Purina feeds and team track. There's Grimes Oil. In the last couple of weeks, that's actually moved to a new spot, and that's an interchange track that goes off to the right to connect to the mountain. Here's where the cows come, not knowing what fate awaits them. And on that same track, here's the Swift plant that leaves out with the cans that the cows have been processed into. Notice that that's on one track. So you've got an industry behind another industry. There's several of those on this. Here's the team track. And you notice that's a nice long track there. And to the left of that bulkhead flat, or center beam flat on the left, is the co-op grain elevator. There's 2 tracks there. The front track is the incoming and the back track is the outgoing. So the operator, when he comes in here, he pulls everything on the back track and then spots these guys on the far track, and then spots his new cars where the Frisco car is. But to the left of the Rio Grande car there is the gas dealer. So you've got to spot a gas car there before you can swap the hopper in front of you back, because that would block it. And then to the left of that is Hoffa Cement, which has been there like maybe a year or so. So it's taking the little hoppers of cement and sand and whatnot. And then behind that, there's the 8-track interchange or staging track yard. You can see on it, the tracks are numbered 1 to 8. 8 is the one on the far left. That's got the west interchange. On track 6, let's see, 8, no, on track 5 right there is the east interchange. And then there's on track 3 or 4, one end or the other is a smaller interchange. And then there's the intermodal cars sitting there just waiting for somebody to get bored and run them around. And of course, in the background, we've got a speedometer under the mountain, which tells you how fast or slow your train is running. That's using Arduinos, but that's another clinic altogether. Here's looking at the west end of the interchange yard, showing the 8 tracks. And here's a look at the other end. You can see in the background on the right, that's the yard east. And the track that goes under the city for the reversing loop goes just on the left there under the city. You can just see the portal there behind some trees. Here's what the inside control panel for the west end of the yard looks like. You've got the train coming in. The switch on the top right is actually controls the switch that goes into Hoffa cement. So this is on the back of Tulsa. You get into the yard doing that way. And then there's 8 yards. You push a button and it aligns the track for that route. And then there's some crossovers in the center, which you can see on the track when I run the videos. Here's the look in there. There's the crossovers in the center. That's the middle of the interchange yard. And you can see the 2 tracks on the left under the city. The far one is just a siding, but the second farthest one is actually the runaround track where you can go in and come out on the other side going the different way. Here's the card boxes for the interchange. 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and 7 and 8 are swap pairs. 3 and 4 are rather different. That's the one I'm actually going to run for you later on in the videos. But basically you come in, you drop off on 6 and pick up 5. And if you don't have time to turn all the cards, you put a blue flag in it that tells me after the session to come in and turn the cards on it. There's another look at it, different angle. Here's let's go back to this. This is the track panel for the inside. You duck under and get in, and that's the panel you see. When you go around on the outside, this is the same panel that controls those same switches. So you can control these from the inside and the outside. It doesn't control the crossovers on the center, but it controls the entrance and the Hoffa cement and the 8 yard tracks. So if you didn't have to uncouple, you could align the tracks from here, run in, grab something, and come out with it without having to bother with decoupling or anything. Here's the control panel for Tulsa. It's not shown on here, but right up where it says meat packing, up on that section there, that's where that's where the switch is to go off into the interchange. There wasn't enough room on this panel to add all that stuff in, so we made a separate panel for that. Here's what the inside of that panel looks like. The guy that did our electricity was slightly OCD. He did wiring as his day job. So he brought his skills here, and we're trying to maintain his level of qualities, but unfortunately he's passed away now. But that's the quality that we want as much as we can get. Here's the control panel for going under or around the city. And excuse me in the background on the reflection, but this is how you control getting in to the yard east. There's actually knobs that you select the route you want. And on the bottom is the outside main. Above that is the inside main. Then there's the industry main. And then the red tracks off to the left are going to the Amtrak station, which we don't use for operations at the moment. Well, in that case, if we've got 10 minutes left, then I won't be able to show you all of the videos. But if you send me a link somewhere, I'll upload them for you. Let's see. I had a nice little set of videos that showed you a train coming through. There's the yard east with all the cars ready to be sorted, etc. There's the start of my session with 2 locomotives coming in. I'll try and run through them real quick. That's getting into there. There's the batch of cards for the 3-4 train interchange. And that's it for those. Let's see, I've got all these videos on movement there. Let's just run this one. And I'll skip ahead on that a little. And trains come in, pick them up, and off they go. And then the next one is going around, setting the switches. That's getting him out of off of the inside passing and onto the main. And then that shows him getting ready to go around. And the next one, I'm throwing a switch here to align him to go into, to get to the interchange yard, flipping switches. And then here he comes around out of the tape, out from the, under the tunnel. It goes around there, goes around there. And then there's another video of him here.
Do you have these on YouTube or somewhere?
Not yet, but I can put them up.
Okay. Yeah, if you send me a link to it, I'd be happy to add that to the past.
These are individual videos at the moment. I'll put them all up there and you can run them in sequence to see what's going on. Let's see.
Yeah, if you just have put them in a playlist, then that would work perfectly.
Yeah, yeah, I'll put them in a playlist for you. Here's doing 3-4 split, etc. And then after that, I've got something that shows you, well, this is it, show you how to process the cards. That was the only one there, so I took my time, but that shows that. And then it shows aligning the tracks, coming back to the yard, going through the tunnel, aligning from the outside to get to going in. Here he comes there. Let's see, setting that, setting here. And then there's the start of how you classify. So he actually dropped off the train, separated the locomotives, and did the classification. So it shows you in videos a train from the start when you put your locomotives in and come in and get it, to what happens to the cars after you're done. And I think that's the last video. So
all right.
let me go.
Let's see, there's a couple more questions. How
Sure.
do you decide which cars to pick up? Do you pick up all cars at a given location or only those that are being replaced by a drop off?
Unless it has an off spot or another card on it, instruction card, you pick them all up.
Okay.
So if there's four cars at the on the siding, you pick up all 4 cars and bring them back, unless there's cold. Yeah.
And there was a comment about, I believe you said that the operator does the card flip when the car is delivered, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Comment was, that's interesting in a few ways. One, the super doesn't have to spend a bunch of time between sessions staging cars and waybills. And two, operators are trusted to reliably flip waybills. So,
Well, we've had a couple that didn't do that, and I hunted them down and said, "Hey, what'd you do?
yeah,
You're not. That's not how it works."
yeah. Do the lockers belong to individual members?
Yes.
Okay. And then are car cards allowed on the layout, or do you have tables around the layout for car card waybill work?
Depends on where it is, but
Yeah.
we've got carts that you can use to sort waybills.
Okay. Yeah, I made the mistake one time of having a photo where a car card was gasped on the scenery. And
Yeah.
let me just say, we have some people who are a little upset about that. So,
Yeah,
but
I can understand that.
all right. Thomas, thanks again for presenting. We certainly
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
There's a quick note about
Yeah, go ahead.
this that you see in the background there. Picking up trains, sometimes I have to stage it on the track it came from, just because we don't have enough staging tracks. So I put a caboose on there to note that these cars are actually already sorted into a train.
Okay.
And that's a really useful thing, because otherwise we have, you see on the cards here, we've got Hobson and Russellville on the same track. So you have to keep track of that.
Yeah.
And if you stage something on there, you have to say, here's the cards that you want. Here's, don't do anything with these.
Yep. Yep. Makes
And there's some people that want to run with a caboose and some people that don't.
Right. Right. All right. Well, again, thank you for presenting. We appreciate you
Okay.
taking the time to do that. I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.